First, this contract that Steven Crowder brought up yesterday. Steven Crowder's contract is now outed. It is outed by the Daily Wire as coming from the Daily Wire. And the Daily Wire has now done a, well, whoever Mr. Boring is, I think his last name is Boring. God, that's weird and unfortunate. Jeremy, is it Jeremy Boring? He has done a response video to the Steven Crowder video, presumably justifying what's in the terms of the agreement, right? Or the proposed agreement.
All right. Our friend Steven Crowder has launched a new initiative called Stop Big Con. And in the video announcing the launch of the project, he talked about leaving the blaze and all the different offers that he fielded from other conservative organizations and what he thought were the real problems with those offers. And that's led
really
a lot of people to speculate about whether or not the Daily Wire is one of the people who made him an offer. In particular, are we the ones who made the offer that he put up on the screen and talked about at length? And the answer is yes, that offer did come from the Daily Wire. First thing you should know is that I'm really miserable to be making this video. Steven's been my friend for 10 years. I think he's maybe the most talented person working in the conservative media space. He's one of the top.
Then why did you kind of send him a shit offer? And I know he's going to say, well, this is only a first offer with no negotiation. If he's a friend that you've had for 10 years and he's the most talented guy in the industry, why are you starting from a shit premise? Why are you doing that?
So, we'd like to have a conversation with Steven, kind of get into the details of, what's he looking for? What's he looking for financially? What's he looking for in terms of structure? What would make his life better? What would make him happy? He's got this opportunity now to have a next chapter. What's he want that next chapter to be? And Steven's agent candidly just wasn't interested in any aspect of that conversation. He only wanted to know about the money. He said, we're not going to have a conversation. We're not going to have some abstract talk. We're going to send us an offer. Tell us how much money you're willing to pay.
Yep.
And he gave us an indication of what the minimum number would have to be in order to even have a discussion with Steven. And it's a big number.
He did you a favor.
So we talked about it internally and we decided, we should do that. We should send over an opening offer, a non-binding term sheet that takes a stab at what we think that minimum number is going to be, to get the conversation started so that we can sit down with Steven, so that we can see if there's a deal that'd be good for him and good for us. And that's what we did. We put together the term sheet, we sent it over, and we asked if we could get on the phone and have a conversation with Steven.
Okay, non-binding term sheet. They're given. He seemed to double speak there. I don't know if you guys caught it, but he seemed to indicate that the agent gave him an idea of what that number would be. And then they came up with a number of what that number would be and sent it, which tells me that the agent told them a number and they went lower than the number. So they're already, in my opinion, I don't know if this is true. It's just the way he said it. It was kind of a weird wording and phrasing of it, but it sounds like they went, okay, that's where they're going to say, which is going to be high. So we're going to come in a little bit lower and then we'll probably meet somewhere in the middle. But if the agent says, look, we're not talking under $70 million over 4 years, whatever, we're not talking less than $20 million a year, and they come in with 50 million over 4 years with maybe some incentive or whatever. I'm not sure what the total is. I've only heard kind of rumors about it. But if they come in below the number, then they don't want to come to the fucking table. Like if someone says, look, our minimum entry is here, that might be the minimum entry, especially if you're friends. And they know who Crowder is, right? Like Crowder is going to make this money, whether Daily Wire does it or not. So they shot their shot and it was low. That seems to be the indication I'm getting. Crowder thinks it's low. If the money was higher, maybe. But it might not just be low because of the number. It might be low because of those other terms that are automatically going to reduce the number. And one of those terms that they know is going to reduce the number is him being demonetized on YouTube, which has already happened. So whatever offer they put on the table, when they have that 25% off thing, that 25% is going to be coming off of that offer immediately because he's already demonetized. So you got to take whatever and knock a quarter off it. And if you don't think their lawyers are going to argue that 25% discount is is coming out of the fee immediately, you're insane. I've heard some people say, well, it was already off, so he wouldn't lose the 25%. No, he'll lose the 25%. And if he ever gets remonetized, he would get that 25% tacked back on. That's how their lawyers would argue that in a contract dispute. And it would happen right away because his payment would be 25% lower than possible. So yeah, it's just a conversation. I'm guessing he's going to go through this, but here we can see fee is $50 million for the initial term, which is 4 years, and then $25 million for every 2-year renewal at Daily Wire's sole discretion. So Daily Wire can choose to renew the contract or not after the 4 years for half the term, half the money. Makes sense. There's no built-in increase, which you would probably negotiate a built-in increase if you're going to have that renewal term in there. But, for now, I think this is fair, or you negotiate some sort of thing in there. But this is it. So you're looking at what? $50 million over 4 years is what? $12.5 million a year. Do we have any idea how many Mug Club subscribers there are and how much Mug Club costs? How much does Mug Club cost? $100 a year. Okay, so if he has 300,000, I'm seeing, times $100 a year, that's $30 million a year. My understanding is under the fee agreement, that goes to Daily Wire. So now I know it's not going to be that flat because there's incentives. Some people are saying it's $80 a year with the sale. But 300,000, let's say it's $50 a year. You're at $15 million a year. So even at half price, he's already, just from Mug Club alone, over the Daily Wire yearly thing. It's only expected to go up. His Mug Club memberships are not expected to drop dramatically. So we've already got a problem. And this is probably where the conversation started, with the amount of money that would be required to even have the conversation with Crowder. You've got to out-earn Mug Club, or you've got to get me to Mug Club or slightly below with some reasonable level of security that Mug Club doesn't offer me. Why would Crowder negotiate his salary down $7 million a year? Like, why would he do that? Like, why is that? Why would we expect him to? Now, maybe he would if something was worth that to him. Now, when you also figure in all your merch is gone, like his merch sales, and merch sales for Crowder are probably a decent chunk of money. I don't know how great they are, but like my merch sales always sucked, but my merch always sucked because I designed it and I suck at designing merch. Crowder's got good people designing merch. So now you're talking about taking away that extra stuff, and you're talking about taking away one-time ticketing events and stuff like that. So I'm already seeing a problem here, but he is saying this is a non-binding, this is an introductory sort of offer. Okay. And an introductory here, let's get to a conversation. Here's what we're kind of expecting thing. But if this wasn't enough, this is just Crowder saying, fuck off. And he can do that.
And for those of you who've never been through a contract negotiation, well, that's how it works. When you send someone an offer, you don't send them everything that you're willing to say yes to, because there is going to be a negotiation, because agents and lawyers are going to get involved, because you can't read their mind and you don't know everything that will be important to them and everything that they'll want. You don't know even, some of their sort of non-negotiable points. And so you send over.
But what you learn in negotiation is that it is like the most effective negotiations are collaborative processes. And when you start at the hostile part and you guys are this far apart to start, you have a much harder time getting to the middle where people are playing games and trying to fool each other. You've already said that Crowder's been your friend for 10 years. You've been wanting to work with him forever. Why are you starting here and thinking he's starting here when you could start here and have him be here and come to the middle? You seem, again, you're talking as if he's your friend, but at the same time talking as if he's an adverse party that you're trying to take over with the least amount of pain for your company, but you're willing to come way up. Start higher. Open with that. Say, hey, we're not fucking around here. We don't want to screw you. We like you. You're big. We're the biggest conservative media outlet out there. We've got some of the real powerhouses. We've got Walsh. We've got Knowles. We've got Ben Shapiro. And adding a Crowder would really round out our lineup with bringing in new people to Daily Wire who might not otherwise jive with our rather stuffy content. We want that sort of edgier comedic aspect to it. So let's not fuck around. Let's not fight each other. We're collaborative here. Let's go for it. You can do this. This works in negotiation when negotiations can be friendly and when the other party is honest. Both of these guys are presenting themselves as honest dealers. And I think that's fair. I think Daily Wire should be an honest dealer. And I think Crowder would be an honest dealer with them, especially if they're actually friends, unless they're just blowing smoke for the viewers on this thing. And I don't think that that's what Jeremy Boring's doing here.
But Stephen has always built in this protection for himself that he wants to actually produce his content. Stephen likes to do that with his own team to just make doubly sure that no one's interfering with his content, not that we would. And so we anticipated that, and we said, Crowder will bear the burden of production, including all costs associated therewith, on all the content contemplated herein, except on the quarterly and annual content contemplated below. We'll get to that part.
Okay, and they're just going to breeze past that. Crowder's already doing that. Crowder's already bearing the burden of the cost of his show. So they're asking him to take a pay cut, and they're not even taking on production costs for him. Because we know that Crowder wants to do that. That's a very weaselly way around saying that, yeah, not only are we giving him this offer that seems lower than his Mug Club membership already brings in, but we're also not going to defray the low offer by covering production and staffing costs because we think Crowder would want that. He's always built that protection in. Well, building that protection in is great. Why don't you pay the staff then? Take them on as Daily Wire staff or something. Agree to do that. There are ways around that. But if you're giving him a lower fee than what he's already making and he's still bearing the cost of production, what incentive does he have to take the lower fee?
Revenue collection that says we'll have the exclusive right to realize revenue in connection with all of his content and brand. We're paying you this guaranteed significant amount of money, $50 million. And for that, one of the things we're buying is the content, but we're also buying the right to monetize the content so that we can have a chance of making some money and not just spending money. What is the content? First, we broke this into...
Yeah, so they'll take the money, all of the monetization. They're going to pay him, and in exchange, they say they're buying the content. They're buying the money that the content earns. I mean, that's their risk in this, is that Crowder will produce content that people continue to want to buy, that they'll continue to pay to support. That's their downside risk. And that makes perfect sense. But again, what they're doing is they're saying, like, again, hypothetically, Mug Club makes $15 million a year. What they're saying is we're going to buy $15 million a year for $12.5 million. That's what they're saying. Now, their risk is that Mug Club will stop producing $15 million a year. Crowder's risk is that he's going to out-earn the $12.5 million. But Crowder's already realizing the risk and has no upside potential. There's no benefit to Crowder to signing the contract. And they should know that. Like, they should have... You'd think they'd have done market research. You'd think they'd have a friend at the Crowder show somewhere who would be willing to tell them what the subscriber numbers are. And I mean, to be fair, maybe they did. Maybe the subscriber numbers aren't as high as people are estimating.
Item 6, the back catalog. Crowder will license his entire back catalog, including without limitation, every past episode of Louder with Crowder to us during the term. That just means...
Okay, so everything that Crowder has ever created on Louder with Crowder now belongs to Daily Wire as well, and they monetize that also. This is reasonable in some sense because it's practicable, right? As people go and watch the back catalog, like, to separate out that from the new catalog would be burdensome. So this makes sense, but it is important to remember that all of the new content that is produced under the Daily Wire contract, sure, that goes to Daily Wire, but also all old content is licensed to Daily Wire. They can do whatever they want with it. They can republish it. They can just reap existing money. They can go back and recut it with ads and do like archive episodes or however they want to do it. They can chop it up into new stuff. And Crowder doesn't get anything out of that because he's granting them a license to utilize that content as they wish. And again, this is all included in the fee, so nothing, he's not going to get anything new out of whatever they do with that existing content. And since he's granting them a license, anything he does with that existing content also goes to them. So he doesn't have any ability to do like a compilation episode, a best of, a greatest hits, let's remember this, and republish something. He doesn't get to do that and reap any benefit. All of that would go to Daily Wire because they'd have the licensing rights for all of those things. So, and that, again, is like it's not an unfair term as long as that expires at the expiration of the contract, which it seems to here because it doesn't say exclusively and in perpetuity. It just says that he grants a license to them to do this. That's a reasonable term. I just wanted to explain what that actually means. And again, going back into this fee agreement, that they're asking for.
Daily Wire will own all of the content created herein and will own all of the DW created channels and brands created by us during the term. And to be clear, we can exploit those channels, brands, and content in perpetuity at our sole discretion. What is
all of the content contemplated to be created herein? So Daily Wire will own every show Crowder makes, even after Crowder leaves, while it's in the term. So they're going to own 4 years of Louder with Crowder. That's what this says. After the term, Crowder doesn't get access, or he doesn't get ownership of the 4 years of content that he created. Daily Wire will own all of the content contemplated to be created herein. Also, all merch. Also, any new websites that are created in relation to this, any of the quarterly content or whatever that they're talking about, the annual content. If he does a stand-up special, Daily Wire will own it. They will own everything he creates in the next 4 years. He will not get those rights back to his show. His existing shows that he's licensing to them, he'll get those back, but the 4 years of content he creates, he will not own. And this is the hard part. And this is a big risk for Crowder, and this that people may not be contemplating. So let's say Crowder, he brings his subscribers over, they sign up for Daily Wire or whatever. They even if they create a subsection, it's like you're signing up for Crowder, but it's going to Daily Wire. However they do it, he won't own that either. And when he leaves, that stays with Daily Wire. So what you're asking Crowder to do here is at the end of the contract, rebuild his brand again if he wants to do it. So Crowder this is something people may be missing out on. At the end of this 4-year term, Crowder loses everything he's built yet again, which he just seems to have done with the Blaze. Everything Crowder builds at Daily Wire is going to be owned by Daily Wire, which means he's not, if he starts over, he's starting over. Sure, he'll keep his channel and his subscriber numbers and all of that stuff, but he'll have to rebuild the monetization from scratch again, for potentially as soon as 4 years later, maybe 6 years later. That's a big downside risk for Crowder.
What does this mean? Well, it means just like all of the back catalog that Crowder would have been bringing over, we would have a license to have that all over at Daily Wire Plus during the 4 to 6 years that Crowder was here.
That's not what this
At
means.
the end of that 4 to 6 years, he would take all that content with him.
Nope, that's a fucking lie. That's a lie right there. It says very clearly in the term, DW will own all of the content contemplated to be created herein and will own all DW created channels and brands created by DW during the term. It does not say they will only own it during the term. They will own all the created channels and brands that are created by Daily Wire during the term. To be clear, they can exploit those channels, brands, and content in perpetuity at its sole discretion. So he just actually misrepresented the terms of this contract by the fucking text. Now, maybe they didn't mean it that way, but what's written on paper is not what he just said.
A little bit different with the content that we're paying.
Okay, he's clarifying. Sorry, I misunderstood.
Tens of millions of dollars
hasty.
For during the course of that content would always stay with us. We would have a sort of perpetual right
to
monetize that content even after Crowder would leave. And if Matt Walsh were to leave the Daily Wire, presumably at some date in the future, well, what as a woman would stay here? Because we paid for that. We paid for the marketing of it, the production of it. We paid him for the time in which he created it. And so this contemplates something very similar. We would still have the right to the things that we make. As far as channels and brands,
I take it back. You didn't lie. You just worded it in a shitty way.
Social media management.
Fighting.
This one was something that Stephen seemed particularly aggravated by in his video, although I don't understand why.
Well, let's read it.
It says DW will have the exclusive right to manage, curate, and monetize his official Facebook, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Snapchat, Rumble, and other social media accounts, excluding his existing personal Twitter and Instagram accounts. We're saying that during the term, we have, of course, he puts his podcast on Apple Podcast. We're the ones monetizing the Apple Podcast. So this is just making clear that, yes, we're selling ads in his podcast. The podcast goes out on Apple Podcasts. That revenue comes back to us. We put something up on Facebook. Same thing. We bring in ad revenue off of that Facebook piece of content. But we're going to own that during the term. Obviously, at the end of the term, he's going to get his official Facebook account back. He's going to get his official YouTube account back. He's going to get his official Apple Podcast channel back. But during the term, again, all those people behind us, we've got experts in every one of these platforms, how to optimize it, how to make sure that you're getting the most out of it. And we'll manage that and we'll collect the revenue. but not as Twitter and Instagram, because those are very personal channels. You can't manage someone's Twitter. I can't
Well, I mean, you
speak
can.
for Candace Owens. I can't speak for Ben Shapiro.
Literally can if you want to.
If only I could. I would like what they say a lot more. I mean, as you know about Daily Wire, we have a lot of disagreements sometimes between our hosts. Presumably, if I could control everything that they say, there'd never be any disagreements. They would just all be right all the time, like I am. We get this a lot where people are like, Jordan's Twitter has changed since he joined Daily Wire Plus. I have nothing to do with Jordan Peterson's Twitter account. I don't have login credentials for his Twitter account. I've never asked him to tweet anything or not tweet anything. I mean, that'd be way outside of the bounds of what's acceptable. Because that's a very
organically
personal medium.
Joined our
Twitter, very personal
organization
medium, Instagram.
We didn't do anything.
It also says that we will have the perpetual and exclusive right to create, own, manage, curate, and monetize any and all social media accounts that we create based on Crowder's content or shows. Crowder already has enormous social channels. He got like 6 million YouTube followers or something. I mean, he's one of the biggest voices in the movement. But what happens if we create a documentary like What is a Woman? Well, sure, you've got Matt's Facebook and Matt's YouTube that are promoting What is a Woman. But we may also want to build a Twitter account, that is at What is a Woman. Well, that wouldn't belong to Matt. That would belong to us, because What is a Woman belongs to us. And that's what this was meant to say, that all of the stuff that Crowder brings over, that's his, Louder with Crowder and all, his Louder with Crowder accounts, all of that. Well, that's his. We're going to manage it for him during the term. We're going to monetize it during the term. At the end of the term, all of that's going to go back to him. He said that was not what it says in his video that he released, but you can read right here. That's exactly, he gets all of, it's only during the term that we control that. But the things that we make based on the content that we make, well, that belongs to us, because the content belongs to us. So those channels have to belong
you're not
to us.
making the content, you're buying the content. You've said he's making the content.
Would never match anything like the magnitude of the channels he's created for himself, obviously.
Well,
11, exclusivity. Should go without saying. If you're going to pay somebody $50 million, you're going to have exclusivity. They can't go make content for people who compete with you. You don't pay someone to go work for the competition. But there's carve-outs.
That also means that Crowder can't do anything other than stuff for Daily Wire, because they have total exclusivity on all media, all content, all of it. So someone's saying Crowder does other stuff than Louder with Crowder or whatever. Yes, but all of it is owned by Daily Wire for the term, and all of it will be owned after the term as well. So if Crowder wants to do a second show, if he wants to do something extra, he has to do it with the consent of Daily Wire and through Daily Wire. He has to. It's in the contract that they have the exclusivity of all of it.
Of course, he can go do non-regular guest appearances if Tucker wants to have him on, if Fox and Friends wants to have him on, if he wants to go do a hit with Glenn Beck or something, he can go do that. He should use good faith efforts.
Yeah, he can do guest spots, but that's not something that he's creating.
Now, here's this section that I know Stephen was very offended by, and I think he misunderstood and therefore misrepresented. Fee reductions. There's a different fee reduction for all those kinds of content he created.
It's interesting.
Daily content. If he fails for any reason to deliver 192 episodes of The Daily Show, or if he fails to include the ads that we agreed to or the promotions that we agreed to in those episodes, then we'll give a $100,000 reduction every time. What's that about? Well, again, you can't pay someone any amount of money, but you certainly can't pay them an unimaginably huge amount of money for their show and then not get the show. So what this is saying is you don't have to produce a show every day. You don't have to produce 260 or 250 or 240 or 230 or 220 or 210 episodes a year. You got to produce 192 episodes a year. But if you don't give us 192 episodes, we can't pay you the same amount of money as if you did give us 192 episodes. So this is just, you give us 192 times 4 minus 1, then out of your 50 million, we're hitting minus 100,000. Stephen said that this is unfair, that if he had a sick day or got in a car wreck, we'd dock him $100,000. But I think that's just totally inaccurate for two reasons. One, presumably if he was sick this Tuesday, he could just shoot an episode next Friday and you'd be completely even. He's got an awful lot of extra time in the year.
Except in the contract, it specifically says Monday through Thursday. Now, you'd probably flex in the contract and allow him to shoot on Friday. That'd be fine. But you did say Monday through Thursday was the shooting days. That's in the contract. We read it just a minute ago. So recording on Friday is not actually part of the contract that's contemplated. Again, you may gentlemanly agree and you can probably clarify that in negotiations, but it's not in the terms that's there.
And second of all, it's actually contemplated a little bit later. What happens if there's a disability? In fact, we'll just skip right to it. It's item E. In the event of temporary disability or serious illness that prevents Crowder from performing, the fee will be reduced on a pro rata basis, not subject to the fee reduction mentioned above. What does that mean? Well, instead of a sort of punitive fee because he's choosing not to do the right thing, in that situation, you'll just reduce it by dividing the total amount of money.
So instead of a $100,000 penalty, it's a $62,000 penalty because, as people have pointed out, if you take the 12.5 million and you divide it by 192, you get 62,000 as the number. So that's the pro rata share that they're talking about. Except it's not $62,000 a show. What is the actual value? That's the real question, because this also contemplates quarterly, right? It contemplates quarterly and annual content that would be produced. It also contemplates merch sales and ads run on every single thing. So what is the actual value? We don't actually know. But it's not 62,000, or it shouldn't be. I'm sure Daily Wire would argue that it's 62,000, but it's technically not. It would be some number sub 62,000 because they're paying for everything, as he has made very, very clear throughout this entire bit, that they're buying all of this stuff and they have to monetize. They have to bring it back. They have to do the ads. They have to do this. They're buying access to the website. They're buying access to the social media. They're buying access to everything. So what is the pro rata share? We don't know. And that would be a fight if they ever, got into it, that they'd probably hammer out behind closed doors and with a sealed agreement. But yeah, that pro rata share is it's presumably 62 grand, but it's in actuality, it should be much, much less. We have no idea what else happened in their discussions. First of all, I think they went in not as a friend, but as an adversary. I think that's what the contract tells me. Maybe I'm crazy. That's what it kind of looks like. And we have no idea how they conducted themselves in the actual meeting with Crowder. And if they came in hostile, playing hardball, that could very much sour relations between the two parties really, really quickly. And if Crowder thinks that he can create something that will far out earn what they're offering him, why wouldn't he?
That brings us to 13, reduction of fee from lost revenue or boycotts. Again, this is one of the points that Stephen really focused on. He says we're enforcers for big tech, that we're doing big tech's bidding, that we're punishing content creators if they run afoul of big tech. And first of all, that's just personally incredibly offensive. It's incredibly offensive to have your friend and ally in 10 years of fighting this fight alongside one another, coming up together.
Big tech?
Say that you're not sufficiently conservative. Say that you're. I think he said in the video that we're worse than the left. That we're doing harm to the conservative audience and harm to the country. That we're not sufficiently at odds with big tech. Obviously that's ridiculous. You'll see that it's ridiculous as we go through this and I explain it. It should be. It's absurd on its face. We get content strikes all the time. We get demonetized all the time. We get shadow banned all the time, just like all conservatives.
What content strikes? Is Candace Owen, Shapiro, Michael Knowles, or Matt Walsh, are they getting content strikes? Jordan Peterson, is he getting content strikes even? Matt Walsh got a ban? I don't know about this, but he says it happens all the time. I haven't heard about it a lot lately, but maybe it does. I don't follow them, so I'm genuinely asking. I have no way to check this.
We're investing tens of millions of dollars every year into technology to try to create alternatives. That's a long-term project. No one has built anything. Rumble is not a true competitor to YouTube yet. I hope that they become one. But right now, YouTube has many billions of people use YouTube and many millions of people use Rumble. It's a long-term investment to build these alternatives. And Daily Wire Plus is an alternative platform. But right now, we all still are dependent for getting our message out to have.
Daily Wire Plus isn't anything like YouTube or Rumble. Like if they're talking about building a competitor, Daily Wire Plus is not the competitor to YouTube. It's nothing even fucking close.
Have access to big tech and to monetize our content. We have to have access to big tech. That's where the audience is, and it's where the money is. It's also where Steven Crowder has made his entire name. He's the biggest conservative YouTube star of all time.
That's not true. Crowder made his name on radio before he was on YouTube. I know this because I was listening to Crowder on radio. I was listening to the Steven Crowder show before it was on YouTube.
The number one place people will view it is on YouTube. And that's not wrong. That's
hold on. Now I'm curious. He's got 200,000 views on Rumble. He does have 900,000 views on YouTube. So it is being more viewed on YouTube than Rumble. Although comparatively, per capita, Rumble is doing better based on total user base that he's described as billions versus millions. So then, good job, Steven. Steven Crowder also has 1 million subscribers on Rumble and 6 million on YouTube. So his engagement is significantly higher on Rumble versus his YouTube channel as well as a percentage of his total audience.
Where people are. That's, of course, they're going to watch it on YouTube. Of course, he's going to put it out on YouTube. That's where the audience is. Now, Steven might respond by saying, yes, but I don't make any money off of YouTube. I have been demonetized there. And that's a point that we'll talk about here. Nevertheless, you and I and everyone, when we go to YouTube to watch Steven Crowder may be demonetized and he may not make
Don't tell me what I do. I don't go to YouTube to watch
YouTube, though, still makes money off of us. And so in that way, Steven
go
is still
anywhere to watch
driving.
it. I watched it on Rumble.
He's still driving success for YouTube. It's unfortunate that YouTube has chosen to cut him out of participating. So what were we trying to accomplish with this section? Well, let's go through it. The reduction of fee from lost revenue, from boycotts, content strikes, or bans from major social media platforms. A, ad drop. If Crowder is boycotted or dropped by more than 50% of his then extant advertising partners, that is, if 50% of the money that he's making from advertisers is suddenly gone, and we're not able to replace that revenue within 90 days, then his fee will be reduced by 25% until such time as the ad revenue has been restored for a period of 90 days, and then it would all reset. Steven says, all the left does is boycott our advertisers, so this just says to the left, your boycotts work and we'll enforce it for you. We will punish the content creator for you.
Yes.
But this isn't about punishing the content creator.
I mean, it is. Like, look, I look at a 25% pay cut from my contract holder as a punishment. Now I get that he's going to say, no, it's not about punishing him. It's about, we have to do whatever. But the reality is, in my opinion, and maybe I'm wrong, but I've been through this, so maybe I'm right too. That boycott would ultimately be beneficial for Daily Wire. It would ultimately be a boon to Daily Wire because everyone on Daily Wire would talk about it. It would generate a shit ton of views. It would probably bring in new advertisers. It would ultimately be a good thing in the long term. And I think Daily Wire knows that.
This is about if the Daily Wire is going to leverage, I can't stress it, probably $100 million by the time you have marketing and infrastructure costs.
Look, this contract's worth $50 million. Oh my God, have you heard of our $60 million contract? This $75 million contract isn't going to pay for itself. What are we going to do to pay for this $100 million contract? It's literally the meme. You need to stop, brother. Please stop. You have to stop. It's getting ridiculous that it's the fucking meme. You're doing the damn meme.
He would have wanted much more, at least $100 million.
Maybe 110.
Obviously, if the show makes dramatically less money, well, then Steven has to make less money because we're making less money. And I brought this up to Steven on the phone, and I said, Steven, if your show, if we guarantee you $1 for your show, and the show makes $1 in ad revenue and $1 in subscription revenue, then how does the money work? Well, it works that $2 come in, you get your guaranteed $1, we get $1. What do we do? What do you do with your $1? Well, you produce your show and you pay yourself. What do we do with our $1? Well, we market your show, provide all the back-end infrastructure, pay for the 250 plus humans who work.
The back-end infrastructure? No, you don't. You again, first of all the back-end production is paid for by Crowder. You said that. The back-end infrastructure is literally YouTube and Rumble and Facebook and whatever other hosting platform. And then Daily Wire Plus also utilizes their own proprietary infrastructure. But that's not necessary. Like, you're not providing something that Steven Crowder doesn't have access to by giving him some hosting on Daily Wire Plus. That's a benefit to you, not to Crowder. That you're not buying Crowder by saying, "Oh, we'll give you Daily Wire Plus access for the 30 minutes of your show." That's part of your buy, is demanding that he hosts 30 minutes of his show on Daily Wire Plus. He would be just as fine off doing locals or a private YouTube members only video, or there's any number of ways he could do this. He could do it through Odyssey, Patreon, anywhere would allow Steven Crowder what you're talking about.
So we pay for that out of our dollar, and then we pay ourselves. But that's how it works. I said, if the next day one of the dollars, the ad dollar, goes away, now what happens?
It'd actually be 50 cents.
Should it be
goes away
that you said something on your show that caused that $1 to go away? Now you keep your $1 and we make zero? I said, that wouldn't make any sense. Obviously, you would have to lose a little and we would have to lose a little. I said, we're trying to sort of emulate the idea of a joint venture. And Stephen said, no, you should lose all the money. It's your business. And I said, well, Stephen, how would we have?
Stephen's right. Like, that might be uncomfortable for people, but Crowder's right there. They're buying all of this. He said over and over, we're buying this. We're buying the show. We're buying the ads. We're buying all this space. Crowder is right. The way they're establishing this deal, it's not a partnership. It's a purchase. Imagine if you bought a car and you you got a speeding ticket. And then the dealership calls up and says, yeah, we're actually going to increase your monthly payments by $100. Why? You got a ticket. So, like, you bought the thing. It's yours now. That's they're buying this show. They do take on the risk. They know who Crowder is. They know the potential for this to happen. They know all of this stuff. And to pretend like it's this, well, no, this is a collaborative effort. No, you've said over and over, you're buying it. He gets a fee and you guys get to do whatever to make up that fee plus profit. That's your downside risk. Now, you may not like that, but if you don't like that, then you need to build a more collaborative agreement. And maybe that would be worked out in negotiation. But stop trying to spin this as something other than a purchase. It's not anything other than a purchase per your own words. And that's where this is getting really frustrating for me, because it's like you just sound really dishonest when you're saying, oh, we're buying this. This is what we're buying. This is what we're paying for. This is what we're doing. And we have to recoup all of it. And that's true, but that's your downside risk. And they're trying to mitigate out that risk from the start. But that's asking Crowder to take on all the risk. And by the way, Crowder may not just be boycott by people over what he says. Crowder may be boycott over something Matt Walsh says, or the fact that he's associated with the Daily Wire. And how can they distinguish that? Because what if Crowder's ad revenue dries up because the Daily Wire fails to produce the ads? Think about that. That's not contemplated in the contract. They're assuming that Crowder would lose the revenue because of Crowder. But if Daily Wire or Matt Walsh or Michael Knowles or Ben Shapiro does something and it causes major advertisers of Daily Wire, because I don't know if you know this, but a bunch of Rumble creators, we run the same ads. Here's the reason, right? They contract with Rumble. Rumble delivers ads to some creators, and we do ads that they think, that would be good fit for the channel. Let's say those major advertisers pull from Rumble. Is that my fault? Maybe, but probably not. It could be anybody's fault. It could be Salty Cracker's fault, or Viva Fry's fault, or Rumble's fault, or they just decide not to advertise anymore. Now Crowder's being penalized again for a loss of revenue that might not be his fault. And that's not in there either. Again, they're contemplating this as a collaborative effort, but the contract is written as a purchase. And this is the problem with the dishonesty in all of this. And this is the problem with not doing the negotiation in a collaborative fashion. It doesn't look collaborative. And he's trying to pass it off as if it is.
Why would we be in business? And how would we stay in business? And Stephen, this is a very important point. Stephen, again, I think the most entertaining, talented person in the conservative movement, I think one of the most entertaining and talented people in entertainment generally in the country today, has created a very successful content generation company, a very successful production company. But Stephen's never had to create the company that actually distributes, markets, and monetizes all of that content.
Wrong. That's not true. Crowder did create that company. Crowder did that. That's like saying I've never created the company that markets, distributes, and advertises my show. I have. I don't pay for advertising, but I market and distribute my show, and I advertise by going on other people's shows, doing guest appearances, tweeting, doing all of that other shit that I have to do. And I'm probably bad at it. But Crowder's been really fucking good at it. Now, granted, The Blaze has done it for a little while. CRTV's done it for a while, but Crowder absolutely marketed his own show. That's how he got to where he is. That's how he got to those first contracts.
He talks in his video about being one of the only true independent conservative voices. And I find that incredibly offensive. You know, Stephen, the whole time I've known him, has worked for someone else, has been paid by someone else. That doesn't mean other people tell him what to say. But he's not exactly a self-made man. That's not true. He was paid by PJTV when I met him, which was owned by a billionaire at the time. Then he was paid by CRTV for a number of years, which was owned by a billionaire at the time. Then he was paid by The Blaze, which was subsidized by a billionaire, until Tyler Cardon, one of the real genius businessmen in our movement, turned the company around and made it profitable. During all of that time, Stephen drove a ton of revenue. He's incredibly valuable. I'm not suggesting that he wasn't driving value. He was. I'm only saying he didn't have to build all of that. He didn't have to think about it. And he didn't necessarily have to be profitable. And he doesn't know for a fact that he was profitable because, as he has said very publicly, all those companies, none of them really shared all the information about what was happening with them. So Stephen feels very certain that his show was always profitable.
His show is definitely profitable. This is insane.
But he doesn't know that his show was profitable. And even if it was, what became of that profit? Most of that profit almost certainly was reinvested into growing the infrastructure and growing the technology and growing the marketing and growing the compliance. That's how business works.
That's insane because all of the people involved in that business took salaries and profit sharing and used that profit for their own personal gain as well as reinvestment. Stop it. Stop this. This is bullshit. I invest a lot of money into my show, like, believe it or not. And this year I'm looking to spend more money on my show than I've ever spent in various ways. You know, I buy new equipment. I travel to different venues. I don't know what else I'll be doing. I buy stuff that's related to the show and that'll be used by the show. But the idea that I don't take the money just gets reinvested in the show. No, there's a bunch left over that goes to me that I spend on books and I spend on fun stuff and food and I feed my family. Like, stop this shit. It's just why are you representing that? Well, all that money went back. You can't possibly say anything even close.
And if you're the Daily Wire, we're a very successful company by conservative media standards, and we're a tiny fraction of the smallest legacy media company. If we're going to make one of the biggest investments we've ever made in talent, which is what we were offering Crowder here, an amount of money that puts all of our investments at risk. What if it takes a year or even 18 months to bring over those Mug Club subscribers, to get those advertisers spending, right? Well, you're losing 8 figures a year in the interim or 7 figures.
Do you really think you're going to have trouble putting 10 ads on Crowder? Like, this is insane. Do you really think the Daily Wire is going to have trouble putting 5, 6? It's an hour and a half show. I don't watch Daily Wire. I've heard they run like 5 ads on every one of their shows or something like that. Do you think they're going to have trouble filling ad slots on Crowder from day one? This is such a disingenuous part of what he's saying. Crowder is bringing an established platform. You've already said he's got 6 million subscribers on YouTube. He's got 1 million subscribers on Rumble. Those are real things that you don't have to build on Daily Wire Plus. Daily Wire Plus exists and Crowder will just be built into it the moment he's on. You're not having to build a platform like you have with other creators who you're buying at like 50,000, 100,000 subscribers and then pumping them to 1 million plus. Crowder has this. That's why you're paying so much. And you know, his show isn't like moving to a new place. Oh, they've got to watch here. You're just going to have him read ads into his existing show, and it's going to already fill that slot. You can go look. Fucking hell. 371,000 views, 419,000 views, 648,000 views, 500,000 views, 449,000 views, 538,000 views, you got a pretty 900,000 views because it's Alex Jones. You've got 400,000, you've got 500,000 views every single live show that's airing on YouTube, every single one. That's not even to mention the Crowder live streams that are going on over on Rumble. 200,000 views. Doesn't separate it out as live content the same. So here we go. 90,000 views, 180,000 views, 300,000 views, 500,000 views on this is another live stream that he did. 400,000 views on this live stream, 300,000 views on this live stream. So now we're up to 800,000 views per show, effectively. Like we could just estimate. He's pretending like that those 800,000, like, oh, we're going to have to start at zero. No, it's already there. Your advertisers know, and you know exactly where you're going to put those ads. You already have it priced out.
A year in the interim while you're doing that. So you can't just say, we're going to pay you $50 million, even if the show doesn't bring in any money. That's not punishment. First of all, 50 million minus 25% is not punishment by the standards of any human being in the world today, right? That's not punishment. That's
not true. If you're worth 50 million and you're losing a quarter of that, then it is punishment. Some people are worth more. Their labor, it produces higher value.
Now, Stephen, when I spoke to him, he was very upset. He said, I've already been demonetized on YouTube. That's the kind of thing in a negotiation. You scratch through that with your red pen and you say, Stephen's already been demonetized from YouTube, so we can't start the deal at minus 25.
Why put it in there then? You knew this. He's been your friend for 10 years. You've known about this. Why even have that?
But if he were making a significant portion of his revenue on YouTube and he lost that revenue, it's not punishing him to say you will make less. We're all going to make less. The real punishment would be if we took all the hit, continue to pay him guaranteed money, whether his show makes money or not, and then we lose the business as a result. And now, no.
I make more money after getting banned on YouTube. Got banned on YouTube. I'm back on YouTube, but I make more money after being banned on YouTube. It was a net gain for me in the long run. Why? Because it boosted my local subscriptions significantly. It got me into, well, I was already working on, but, you know, it got me into a Rumble contract that exists now. And it got me a bunch of attention. Before being banned off of YouTube, I would not have had 15,000 people watching this show. Him pretending like Crowder he's already said that YouTube's an insignificant revenue portion being demonetized on YouTube. And someone down here was saying how little it is, like, oh, 500,000 per show. By the way, 500,000 live views per show is, I mean, it doesn't compare to 65 grand a show, but it's not insignificant revenue. As someone who routinely got that many views or even more during the Johnny Depp trial on live streams, it's significant revenue. It's significant. It's thousands of dollars a day. Crowder's show being demonetized is just from YouTube Red subscriptions is thousands of dollars a day. Him being demonetized from ads is several $1,000s more. Him not being able to collect super chats is several $1,000s more. But it's nowhere near what they're paying per show. And taking a 25% cut on that is crazy town, because it's not a quarter of 65 grand either. It's not $17,000 a show from YouTube revenue alone. That's what it's not. But his short content is. That's where the real demonetization is. This is a million views on YouTube at 28 minutes. You could run 4 ads on that. This is a $10,000 video. An hour long, 2.8 million views. This is a $40,000 video. 1 million views, hour and a half, $15,000 on this video. Because this stuff adds up really quickly. And Crowder has way more subscribers than me and may have a higher CPM than I would. 2 million views on 15 minutes, $20,000 to $40,000. This is where the money is on YouTube, by the way. Live streaming isn't the money on YouTube. The money is in this content that is advertised when it's monetized advertising. But this is 20 to 40 grand that he will never get. YouTube pockets all that money. That's all money that would go to the Daily Wire, by the way. So him, like, it's this weird back and forth on this shit. Again, it's not the production of the show. It's all the other shit that, like, the show is the vehicle. The live show is the vehicle to bring people in or whatever. But it's that short content is these bursts of massive amounts of money. YouTube fucked him with demonetization. They know about that. Why? Oh, while Crowder's, well, you get a lawyer to come in there and redline it. Why even have it? Again, he's your friend. You know this.
If the content simply cannot appear and therefore cannot not only be used for marketing, cannot be used to grow the brand, also can't be monetized, well, we can't pay him the same as if it was. If you're making 25% of your money on YouTube, and now YouTube is permanently gone, well, you can't make that money anymore. It's not punishment. And this is really what it comes down to.
Kind of
Stephen's philosophy seems to.
But see, it's not losing YouTube would not be a direct loss of YouTube revenue because the other platforms would generate more revenue than they're generating. They would absorb the loss of YouTube. That would be the key. And they know this. Even Daily Wire subscription content would benefit overall from Crowder being banned from YouTube. It'd be guaranteed revenue into Daily Wire Plus, which is better revenue than the speculative revenue of all those platforms. So it's dishonest.
I deserve to be paid millions and millions and millions of dollars, whether my show drives the revenue or not.
False.
That's not a business relationship.
Yes, actually,
he's not looking for a business.
He's kind of right. Yes, Crowder is saying that. But it's related to the terms. You've set up a purchase of the content, which means you're shifting the risk and giving him the fee. But then you're trying to penalize him for the risk that you bought. But you buy the risk, you buy the liability along with the asset. And you know the liabilities with Crowder. You know the risks that he's going to do. You put in specific terms that if he goes far outside the TOS or whatever, like that it's egregious. But the thing is, they'd all agree that the ban was unjustified while then taking the money away. And that'd be the bullshit aspect of it. And they'd reap the benefit of the increased subscribers while taking the money away.
I think what Stephen's suggesting here is kind of even more disingenuous than that, because I actually kind of came up with this whole concept by watching Steven Crowder. I mean, I mentioned it before. Steven created this idea of Piss Off YouTube segment at Mug Club. And I saw it and thought it was genius. What does it mean? It means Steven can go on YouTube, speak to a huge audience. In fact, most of his audience, that's where they engage with him. And he can go on there and he can be risque and he can do what he wants to do, but he can be calculated too. And he can say, there are some things that I simply can't say here because these bastards hate free speech. For those things, come over to Mug Club and become a subscriber. And then for 30 minutes a day at the Blaze, he could say whatever he wanted. And I thought that was a genius thing. And I implemented it at Daily Wire because
So you understand what Crowder's doing and why the demonetization ends up being more sustainably valuable over the long term, and you still want to penalize him for it. It's fucking unreal that he understands this and still is trying to justify the penalty, not realizing exactly what Crowder would be doing would be beneficial to Daily Wire specifically.
I am trying to maximize the reach and revenue of my hosts and my company, because no company spends more money than the Daily Wire, tens of millions of dollars every year, helping our talent grow, marketing our talent with real dollars. We spend tens of millions more building technology, tens of millions more on staff and support, building expertise, so that we can, over time, build a completely parallel system, a completely parallel economy. That is not a day's work. That is a generation's work. That is the work that we are engaged in. That's why we've had.
I'm sorry. I don't feel like Daily Wire, and maybe I'm wrong, is building a parallel economy. Personally, I don't see that. The only thing I've seen them do that's even close is like their independently produced movies, I guess, like with Gina Carano and whatever. But I don't know that producing movies that then need to be distributed on traditional platforms is building a parallel economy.
The rest of this document, you're welcome to read it. It's just legalese. And what it says is, if we decide to move forward, this isn't the whole document. We're going to have a longer document. We're going to have to negotiate these topics. Confidentiality. We're not going to tell people about the deal. He didn't sign this, so he doesn't have those confidentiality require.
He also didn't tell people about the deal or who it was with. He didn't violate confidentiality. He only shared a couple terms from a contract as an example. He didn't even suggest, well, no, it did say Steven Crowder. So I guess it was, we could infer that it was an offer for him, although he could have written that in himself. We had no idea who it was. People speculated, of course, that it was Daily Wire, but they also speculated that it was Fox, OAN, that it was the Young Turks. No one knew who it was. You did that. He didn't violate confidentiality, even if he had signed the agreement. But he didn't sign it. You're right. He was under no binding. There's no binding to the confidentiality, and it really would have been hard to have a binding to the confidentiality anyway, because it's just a preliminary list of terms and not a contract, right? So a new contract would have to come out. So what consideration was there to actually make this a binding agreement? I'm not sure what you thought made this a binding agreement in the first place.
I don't owe Steven a job, and Steven doesn't owe me a show. We opened up a conversation in good faith. We made an offer. He didn't like it. Now he's burning us.
He didn't burn you.
That brings me actually to what happened after. Normally, this is the stage where you say, I like this, I don't like that, red line, red line, red line, and we move closer together. Instead, Steven said, I'm not going to redline this. Not going to have my agent respond. This deal is garbage. You need to start completely over.
Yep.
I said, well, I'd like to talk through why we do it. And he listened for a little bit, and he said, well, you're just wrong. You don't know anything about business. My business model is the right business model.
Okay.
And of course, that's unfair because Steven hasn't run this part of a business before. Steven likes to say, I'm only on the air because of Mug Club. But Steven couldn't tell me how many subscribers he had. I said, how many subscribers do you have at the place? He said, I don't know. They don't tell me. And I'm sure that's true. He said, but I'm confident. I guarantee you it'll be 350,000 on day one with no marketing.
Okay.
I hope that's true, but I can't take that risk.
Why not?
I've never seen that to be true. I've never launched any talent with $0 spent on marketing and picked up a third of the total subscribers that the entire Daily Wire has built in 8 years in business. But that's not a risk that I could take. Steven implied that he not only didn't.
That's the risk you're buying. That's the risk you're trying to buy. And don't weasel out of this. You know that you think you're going to recover that much money in Daily Wire subs. That's what you think is going to happen. And in fact, I bet he goes, okay, well, he's not going to make 350,000 on day one, but I bet we're going to get 200,000, 250,000 the first year. The contract is priced for that. The contract that they put out is priced for him to make 200 to 250,000 in the first year. Crowder says 350,000 on day one. That's probably some puffery, but I don't know that it's that much puffery, in all honesty. Crowder has built up an extremely loyal fan base. And that's less than 10%, 5.6% of his viewership, of his YouTube subscribers, Mug Club. That's not unreasonable. It's not necessarily going to happen, but it's not unreasonable to think that it could. But it doesn't have to be 350,000 on day one. Their first year is 12.5 million. They have to have 125,000 in the first year to break even on the deal, just in Mug Club, and no other monetization, no ads, nothing else. Do we really think that Steven Crowder's not going to pull 125,000 Mug Club subscribers into Daily Wire in the first year? Of course he is. Of course he's going to do that. I believe that without even thinking about it. That's just to cover the first year's expense. They're actually prorating and budgeting in that he won't earn that in the first year, but that he'll over-earn that in the subsequent 3 years to make up for the deficit of the first year. That's the risk they buy. That's why it's a 4-year term. But I think there's no way Crowder doesn't bring 125,000 people in the first year. No ads, no merch, no revenue on any alternative, on any other platform. Just flat money. Remember, Crowder bears the burden of all production. They lowballed the fuck out of him. Someone's telling me the all access pass to Daily Wire Plus is $20 a month. If it's $20 a month, then it's 68,000 in the first year. Again, do we think Crowder's not going to pull 68,000 people over? I don't know. I don't think he believes this.
Didn't like this $12.5 million a year number that I offered him, but that he thought it should be closer to $30 million a year. That's $120 million over 4 years just for Steven's show.
Yeah.
I would still have to spend those tens of millions of dollars every year that I told you about on things like marketing and infrastructure and technology.
Why do you have to spend tens of millions of dollars a year on marketing Crowder's show? Crowder's show is bigger than every show you have. Crowder is the marketing arm for other Daily Wire shows. This is silly. You don't have to spend tens of millions of dollars a year marketing Crowder. You don't have to spend tens of millions of dollars a year in infrastructure. You already have the infrastructure. That infrastructure is supporting all the other shows and content. This is crazy. 30 million a year is not that's not actually out of line for what Crowder is bringing.
I can't guarantee $30 million a year. I didn't know how I was going to pay for 50. I thought, not that he isn't worth it, but that's a big risk. $120 million is an incalculable risk for a company our size, but that just was not a deal that the Daily Wire could possibly make. And we'd have to pay it even if he lost all the revenue?
He wouldn't
or
lose
even if
all
he
the
lost
revenue.
enormous chunks of the revenue?
He wouldn't lose enormous chunks of the revenue.
It was just an impossible situation. And so, Stephen
Crowder losing enormous chunks of revenue is a decades-long proposition, and they're buying a 4-year chunk. And that is risk. There is risk involved in business. That's part of it. If you're trying to acquire top-level talent, if you're trying to hire the greatest quarterback in the NFL, and then he gets syphilis and dies because he was banging Thai ladyboys all day, well, I'm sorry, you lost your investment. It happened. But that's a cost of business. But outside of Crowder dying, you're paying out this contract. He's not likely to lose massive amounts of support. And the amount of support he has to do to bring equivocal or equivalent amounts of money in is not huge. You're not asking Crowder to build something. He's a tested brand that has brought in this type of money before.
Stephen said, we're going to throw this deal out, start over, send me a new deal.
There you go.
And because of his talent and because
You
of our
literally
friendship,
offended the other
I thought
party.
about it for a minute. And I just realized what I already knew in my heart, which is Stephen's not a team player.
Oh,
That's not a knock.
it's not
He's
a
an
team player.
enormous individual talent. But he's not going to be happy unless he's out on his own. And so I called him up. I said, hey, we're not going to send a follow-up offer. I want you to hear it directly from me, not from lawyers and agents. I said, but the kind of deal you're looking for is not the kind of deal that we can make. And months went by. And then I wake up yesterday and he puts out this video laying into us the way that he did. And, you know, he redacted parts of the document. He didn't name us by name. And I'm sure on some level that was meant as a courtesy. But all it really did was create suspicion in our audience. I know a lot of you have been out there defending us, saying, well, this couldn't have possibly been the Daily Wire.
A lot of people
And
out there criticizing you too.
I don't want to be the guy who 3 weeks later,
Don't you love the defense? The defense. Listen to that. The defense from the fans of the Daily Wire were, this couldn't possibly be the Daily Wire. Fuck. That's smarts.
Stephen or someone else says that it was the Daily Wire and you feel betrayed. Like, why'd these guys leave me out to dry? I appreciate your impulse to defend us,
But no, it was
but we don't need
us.
to be defended. This is a fair offer. It's an offer that would have been negotiated. I would have paid him more. The fees would have been lower. Fee would have gone up. Penalties would have gone lower. Number of work days probably would have shrank. He would have done a little bit less content, and we would have inched our way like this, either to a deal or not to a deal. That's not how Stephen chose to operate.
You started way lower than you knew he was
And now we
worth.
find ourselves here where we're having this public.
Listen to what he just did there, by the way, because I know there's been a lot of people in the chats like, oh, 50 million's a fair deal, blah, blah, blah. He knows that it would have been more money and reduced fees. He knows it. This is a friend and an ally. You don't have to do business as enemies. Crowder probably thought that his friends and allies were going to bring him a collaborative offer, and they treated it like they were hiring Cenk Uygur. But would you want to deal with Cenk the way you deal with Steven Crowder? No. Cenk would be adversarial. Crowder should be collaborative. Friends for a decade. Allies in the movement, whatever gay shit that is. While you talk about business the entire time, you're talking about the movement. Nothing about this deal screamed collaborative, screamed movement, screamed ally, or screamed friend. And why do you think Crowder was hurt by it? Because he thought he was going to get something closer to the end deal as the initial offer. And you gave him an offer where he said, no, fuck you. I'm walking away. And you didn't come back with a more reasonable thing. He gave you 3 months. Now he's framing this as, wow, he didn't say anything for 3 months. He told you to come back with the offer and you didn't. Did you call him and say, Yeah, you did. You called him and say, well, we don't have a better offer for you. Okay, cool. I'm still offended by the offer that you gave me. Thought we were friends. Now he's saying, well, we would have paid him more. The penalties would have been lower. But you started at a place that it was not the right, like not even close. And you know it. That's the problem, is he knows this. He's saying it. Look, again, my friend Ty negotiates contracts and sales at companies that are much bigger than this contract with Crowder, even 9-figure, 10-figure deals. He negotiates them, and you can fuck a really good deal with a shit initial offer, even if everything is going to be right, even if it's the most correct deal on the planet, it makes the most sense. You bring a shit initial. Crowder has built his brand through the bending of iron of his own two hands, fighting against a media system that fucking hates him, fighting against a media environment that hates everything he represents. That's his perspective, whether you agree with it or not. Crowder believes he fought the tides and won. And you're going to tell him, yeah, you're not actually, we're going to lowball you. Not only that, we're going to lowball you by a lot. And we know we're going to lowball you. I think it was a huge miscalculation, honestly. I think it was a big mistake for them to do this in this way. And I can't for the life of me figure out what he thinks was innovative about that deal. Hi, we own everything that you make and we pay you less than we think you're going to bring in. That's what he just said that, by the way. And not only, like, if you listen to his examples, he thinks that at the end of negotiations, at the ultimate part of the deal, that it's one for them, one for Crowder. That's what he thinks. That's what he claims. Remember his example. Show brings in $2, $1 for us, $1 for Crowder. He thinks that their split should be even, but it shouldn't. Why does a company get the same amount of money as Crowder? That doesn't make sense. It's not a 50-50 deal. Nothing about that deal screams 50-50. Again, you can build collaborative deals, and it's not one. Nothing about that deal looked innovative to me at all. An innovative deal would be something with a much lower guarantee, much higher, massive upward potential, ownership opportunities within Daily Wire, things like that. Lower control, actually the opportunity to monetize portions of subscriptions that are verified to coming in through him, through promo codes. They could do a lot of stuff specifically giving bonuses if ad deals overperform, because some ad deals are based on commissions, based on signups or whatever. Like, there's all sorts of innovations that they could have put into that agreement. And none of those exist in there. And he's acting like this is not some bog standard, boring talent acquisition contract. That's the type of contract you would expect from a record industry label, a generic Twitch streamer acquisition. Like, none of that looked surprising, innovative to me in like a positive way. Surprising at the penalty sections. Yeah. Yeah, those penalty sections are brutal. Especially because the reality is, a lot of times when you get canceled from one platform, it moves in waves across the rest of them. So imagine Crowder does get banned from YouTube. Well, you lose 20%. Do you think he's not going to get banned from Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Facebook after that? So suddenly he's down 60% of his revenue. Doesn't matter the fact that maybe Rumble and Odyssey make up for it. Maybe he blows those up and they still run every ad to the same audience that he was running, or even a bigger audience, because it drums up a bunch of news. Maybe he adds in Twitter or Instagram live streaming or whatever, and he gets those things. None of that is there. There's no innovation in building an alt tech platform. Rumble isn't even mentioned in the contract, even though Daily Wire would presumably own all of Rumble. But there's no mention of building up Rumble, building up allies. There's no mention of anything innovative in there at all. That's what drives me crazy. He's sitting there thinking that this is like some great deal. And I don't see it. I don't see it. But in reality, what Crowder was talking about was less about the money, I think. Even though I still, looking at the numbers, I don't think it was a fair purchase price for Crowder. Which, yeah, people have said, well, then don't sign the contract. Yeah. But also, they're lowballing the biggest talent there is. They're putting in these crazy terms. You say, well, they all get a deal. Oh, so your other talent, you don't own their social media? Your other talent, you don't penalize them if they get demonetized? Is that what we're supposed to believe? But you just told us all of the reasons why you have to do that. So I'm not sure what the other talents contracts look like. But it stands to reason that theirs probably look pretty similar to Crowder's. Maybe with different percentages, different numbers attached. And that contract can be very predatory, especially if you're going to work the next couple years. They're going to build up a platform that you're on. They're going to own everything you build on that platform. Then when you get off, you have to start from scratch. That's a tough gig. But anyway, that's that. I wanted to do it for completeness. Look, it's a $50 million deal. That's a great deal. I would love a $50 million deal. I'd be so fucking happy. Would I take that $50 million deal? There'd have to be a lot of redlining that would go on. I'd change that 10% advertiser rejection number. That's crazy. Like I'm not gonna just advertise bullshit. I'm gonna choose the advertisers. That's gonna be a big part of our agreement. But there's no way I'm getting a $50 million deal over 4 years. That's a gauntlet challenge, Daily Wire. I dare you to fucking offer me $50 million. See if I won't take it, bitches. But there's no way. But Crowder can demand that kind of money. I know that my contract looks nothing like that. I don't have any of that bullshit penalty nonsense. And my contract's pretty clear. They're buying 14 live streams a month. That's my contract. Pretty straightforward. I know what they're buying. They know what they're buying. We reached a mutual agreement on price for it. Everything's good. 14 live streams a month. Everything else I make, I can put on whatever platform I want. I don't have to make any more content than that. If I make less content than that, we can terminate the agreement. Now, if there's a good reason, like maybe I get in a car accident or I go into a coma or something, yeah, we have to talk about, is this a 1 month thing? Is this a 2 month thing? Do I just do more the next month? Like what, because there are advertising deals and stuff that depend on the amount of content that's being produced or whatever. But if I want to do 3 shows a week on Rumble and 4 shows a week on YouTube, I can, because they've bought 3 shows a week, period. They don't get to own everything else that I do. But yeah, this idea that the contract is some like super beneficial thing, I think it's ugly, frankly. So pour out an odd bag of bow, more of that frog. Spirits flow as the ones who get unemployed. So pour out a glass for the tea, post on Twitter as we hear Lost Painting tonight. From the wide shores of Nairn to the hills of Glenlivet, there's no one who explains the thought better than Nick. So pour out a glass for the ones who have passed to make the law